Okay, just a little bit about what you can expect from us. You get a short introduction to TenForce, hear about some common industry practices, analyze some drivers for digitalization. We'll do a review of our shift management process, and then we'll have a live demonstration. We'll have a couple of Q&A sessions along the way. So if you have any questions as we're kind of going through this, again, you can either drop them in the chat or just kind of save them for one of those little Q&A sessions. So about TenForce, we are a software company that for over 20 years has helped digitalize and automate processes related to EHSQ and operational risk management in high risk and highly regulated manufacturing spaces across the globe. We've been working in the Houston ship channel since 2013, and we first opened our US offices in 2018, coming out of the port of Antwerp in Belgium. So in 2021, we found a little hometown hero that overlapped in values and industry expertise with the acquisition of Process Data Control Corp. From its beginnings, PDC's primary business has been business process management and improvement with an emphasis on workflows related to EHS compliance. The robust capabilities complemented TenForce's existing portfolio as we continue to create the most comprehensive EHSQ and regulatory compliance solution. Whether it's a kiss of simplicity or you're fighting with a hammer of complexity, we can provide you digitalization options for any organization. So we have a presence in Arlington, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, as well as working elsewhere in the United States, and we are happy to come say hi and meet the team. So at its core, TenForce has an organically grown multi-module platform that is a robust data aggregation and task management engine. We have starter pack configurations that continue to evolve by listening to our client partners about what matters to them. With out-of-the-box modules, we can further configure it to fit business requirements. Data can be associated with multiple modules and logic can be programmed based on the inputs into the TenForce application, or we can extract from external systems with a push and pull API. If you would like to learn more about any of our other modules, feel free to drop us a line in the chat or via email and we will follow up with you. But enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about shift management. Okay. Uh, so in my time at TenForce, I've spoken with a lot of operational quality safety professionals, and for a lot of companies, paper is still the preferred tool for shift handovers and logbooks, more so than other processes. And, the question is, why is paper still the main information carrier? And I would say it's probably from familiarity, flexibility, and versatility. Paper is lightweight, easy to use, easy to read, easy to structure, and it allows users to record information in a free-form way. Overall, this shows that the shift management process and handover process require remarkable flexibility in an approach to recording. But of course, using paper-based recording methods comes with some risk. Lost time to double or triple recording, errors in information, you only get one copy of it. There's legibility issues and poor visibility. Seen pieces of paper get stuck to a shoe or left in a back pocket and then show up in the wash at a later time. So it's appears that these issues really form the main drivers for companies to digitalize their shift handovers and shift management. The problem is that most digital tools often do not match the open-endedness of the paper solution. So the core for us is not just to replace the paper medium, we wonder how to improve upon the versatility of paper. So I think it's obvious what we as a software company would propose. We propose templated ways of working in which you have full control of the templates and how the data is structured. It makes sense to match operations with a tool that automates the menial tasks and shift handover and that has the same mobility as paper. Here, the shift management process is split into two main parts, the handover and the management process. These are the elements that seem to be front and center when digitalizing the shift handover itself. Legibility and record keeping, as the record info legible and is it retrievable? Clarity of information between different users, management and operators, multiple operators, uh, the speed of data management, traceability, the informational latency and how long it takes to close a feedback loop, and then managing projects over time. So managing this shift in the operators themselves, as a manager, we can ensure that you can retrieve the right information quickly, no matter its nature or specificity. The handovers are catching the right information, so it doesn't pose a risk to the operational efficiency of wasted time gathering information that isn't relevant. You want to keep informational disruptions to a minimum, so you don't want an alert to fall on deaf ears. And you don't want to be confronted about information that should have been recorded but wasn't, or was recorded at some point but is no longer retrievable. So beyond this, it's good to think about how involved you want to get, how involved you need to get to make sure the correct tasks and instructions arrive in the right place with the right teams and people. Mix of information is also something to consider, and it's tricky to manage manually each time, so a software solution should be able to help. So with this in mind, we'll show you kind of what elements go into this. Okay, this is a zoomed out view of how TenForce sees the shift management process. You'll notice that shift management is at the center of the operation, and spoiler alert, it always is. The main points of attention are data transfers between and the way the information can be structured. So you see the schema is divided into input, output, and the mess that operational management can be. On the input side, we have several ad hoc processes and some larger scale management flows. So all the instructions you want to pass along, all SOP updates that need to be notified, SDS data you want to update and notify, tasks you want to push to teams, line workers, competences and training that you need to track for your personnel to show off time. In case the TenForce data could come from our competences module, it really comes down to this. This is all information that should go into a shift for it to go smoothly and for operations to continue to run efficiently and safely. TenForce fully enables this on mobile devices, effectively creating a dynamic form. And when you will see mobile app, our mobile application, we'll get more into that later on. So from the output side, you have data that you're looking to collect that's segmented into other processes that will drive the input at a later stage. Observations, handovers, incidents, measurements, just any data you need to capture, production anomalies, or the amounts that you do produce. And then here at the center, you see multiple processes that intersect with functionality at our shift management solution. We have the capability to support the overlap between these different processes in your site operations and seek that information with shift management. You get info on changes that have reached the execution stage for the area in which the shift takes place, or permit, lockout, tagout, P&ID statuses, things of that nature, and other operations that take effect at that location. And just to show an example of how the TenForce multi-module ecosystem can interact with each other, here's an example of what the ecosystem might look like. Shift management is at the very center of the operations. The same is true for how we structure our modules. Other modules in the TenForce ecosystem pictured here can interact with shift management in some way, either sending information to shift management or receiving data from shift management. It begins and ends with shift management, even though each module also functions on its own. So in our demonstration today, we're going to show some of that capability. We have a starter pack of shift management that you can configure. So some of the things that you may see today may not be in the starter pack. So what you'll also see again here is a little block called mobile application. All of our web-based modules can be extended to the mobile application in a variety of ways. This is part of the demo you're about to see, and finally leads me to my final slide before I hand it over to Michael. And that's shift management on mobile means a number of things. We consider it a vital part of the offering. Of course, a web application can function on its own, but extending the solution to include mobile means you take the essential part of the web with you, even in offline mode. You can have the app installed per user or per line, ensuring data is fed back in a real-time manner. You're extending your managerial practice into the field with immediate effect. You can send and receive notifications through the mobile application and the comment section. And you suddenly have a central mobile collection point for team members, single users, or for the back office, since native applications connect directly to the web application. So before we hand it over to Michael, I'd like to hold a short Q&A, see if there are any questions that y'all have come up with through this presentation.
And everyone, you muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yes, or you can just drop it into the chat.
I have a question that came through the chat, Adam.
Yes.
How does the other modules work with the shift management? You were showing quite a few of the modules that we have. So how do they all work together?
So there is scripting that goes into the back end. So as you input, if you log an incident on a shift, then it can be associated with that shift. If there are audits or permits that are going to occur on a shift, we can visualize that data and record activity from the permit. And we can have operations go directly into the shift module and have access and links to those permits, and it will actually take you to the status of those activities. So I believe Michael can show you a little bit more about that here in the demonstration.
I can.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Did anybody else have any questions? Okay, I'll turn it over to Michael. And without further ado, Michael Heiser.
Thank you, Adam. So everybody can see my screen. Adam, can you see the screen? So.
Yep, good to go.
Good deal. All right, guys. As Adam mentioned, we're showing the shift management that I will add some additional modules that we have just to give you an idea of a way, not the way, of how you can integrate other modules into the shift management piece of it. But mainly that we'll be focusing just strictly on the shift management piece of this. What you're seeing here is our TenForce portal. And I am logged in as an administrator, but I could easily be a shift manager. And the only thing from a shift manager standpoint, the only thing that matters to me is down here, I have shortcuts. And no shortcuts, I basically want to see my current shift, task assigned to me. And let's just say that I'm maybe upper management, I want to see all the shifts. So I can have another shortcut that I can go directly to that. So for example, if I wanted to see all the tasks assigned to me, I can click on that, or I can be notified of any type of actions that need to happen within my shift. So I can be notified certain actions that happen, certain incidents that happen. At any point, I can click on those notifications and be notified. Over here to the left, I have a KPI, so I can have different KPIs for what are important to me. For example, luckily I don't have any late or important information being sent to me, but I would have these different graphs up here on top that I can visually see something and make that selection and go directly into that record. Before we go into, as a shift manager, before I go into my current shift, one of the things I want to show you is what happens prior to the setup is we have a thing called shift templates. And what that provides you is a way to set up your different shifts. So every time a new shift comes up, what will happen is you provided the name, the location, and the days that are applicable to the shift that you're doing and the time that the shift lasts. And then you have obviously your supervisor and your shift team. And in addition, I can go into our shift roster And in your shift roster, you will have certain task items, such as certain actions that need to happen, certain measures need to happen, maybe instructions. So all that will be pre-populated into your shift. And you saw that shortcut I had. There was also, let's just say I'm in upper management and I want to see all the shifts that are going on with my organization. One of the things I can easily do is look at this as a tabular report. One of the things you'll see throughout this demonstration is we also have on these columns, it's consistent that we have these icons to the right. And what it allows me to do is I can easily change the way I'm looking at this report. So I can move these things up, I can add, I can delete. Also, I can do certain filters. So based on a certain area like the status, I just want to look at the ongoing status or maybe the latencies of what's going on. And as I indicated, I can look at it in different formats. So I can show it as a graph or a pivotal table or a card view. So as I make that selection, I just have a different view of how I'm looking at that information. And I can also see attachments and images that I have attached to that particular shift. But as a shift management, really the only thing that really matters to me is that I come in, I want to look at my current shift. So as I make that selection, I go into my current shift. And as I indicated before, the previous shift manager or our supervisor has already notified me about the shift. We've already met. And what I mean by that, I can be notified as I indicated up here, or if I come down here, maybe I forgot something that he indicated, I can easily go into that hyperlink where it says previous shift. So once again, I can look at the overview of what happened, any remarks that have been indicated. Maybe that something happened in the previous shift before that. Once again, I could go into that shift, but basically I can get abreast of what happened from the previous shift. But also previously to the shift handover, I am notified right here as he goes through the handover piece. He indicates that I have been notified based on the previous shift, as well as I'm being notified. And if I'm still not clear on what happened, all that information in this record can be dropped into a template into this document. And I'll go into that a little bit more in details here in a little bit. So once I have all that information, now I can go directly into my shift. I can also look at, as we talk about, there is the shift module, but we can add additional modules in there. For example, the incident management piece of it. If I wanted to know what exactly happened during that incident on my shift, all this is tied in together. So in other words, I have all the overview. Over here to the right, you can see I can add in additional modules such as the contractor module. I could have an audit. So let's say after that incident occurred, maybe I want to create an audit so that accident won't happen again. Or I even have the documentation processing piece. And what that means is I am sure that I have the latest documents available based on this particular incident. And as you're looking at this, I won't spend too much time in incidents, but you will have attachments, images. Let's say that here it says he cut his hand. Let's say that it didn't happen out here. It actually happened right over here in the conveyor belt. So you can pinpoint that here, position based on the 3D or 2D model that you have. And then you have, as typical from an incident management, you would have the injury, and obviously you could report that to the OSHA forms, right? But we're here for the shift management piece, so I can easily go back into that, and that's all tied into one record. So anything that happened on that shift, I can easily go into the other modules, and once I print that information out, it's all linked together. So once I have gone through the overview, then I come over to my task tab over here. And all this is action process. So I'm an administrator, but since this one's already been created, obviously I want to have this button saying next, but the next part will be the task. And in the task, as I talked about those templates, there can be a pre-populated action items that can happen. So once I open up my shift, I know there's certain actions that have to occur. not to get too confused or too in depth in here, but I can also in here, some of these action items can be audits as well. What is not apparent in the front part, but over here on the status, let's say that I cannot go into the next shift. So let's say I'm in the afternoon shift. I can't turn this over to the evening shift until everything is either rescheduled, closed, or in process. But if it's not started, then I can't, there's logic in the back part of it will not allow me to go into the next shift piece of it. So as I'm looking at this not started, so I can go into the action item. And in here, I have an overview, a description, and then I have the action that needs to occur. I can start that process, and as you can see, it changes the status. I can say that we didn't complete it all the way through. I can hit the completely partial, meaning that there still things need to happen, or I can come in here and just complete that particular action. The nice part about this too is once we verify and close this, I have a breadcrumb where I can see where I started and where I am currently right now. For example, if I need to go back some, I know exactly the steps or what module I'm in, so I can quickly go back to the original shift management record. So now that we're looked at the actions, I can also come down here. We could have other things such as measurements or instructions. For example, maybe we need measurements of the pump. You know, we need to know the pressure, or maybe it wasn't the pressure, maybe it was a weight or something else that you guys have business-wise. So once you decide that, you can put in the value or the measurement that needs to be done. And once that is complete, as you can see, you can, the nice part about TenForce is that you can have as many fields in here or modify the fields on how your business process works. And this, from a starter pack, this is what we have. You come in here and click on Mark as done. Once again, I take the breadcrumb and go shift back into my task area. And then the last part I want to look at is my instructions. There's different ways that you can do the instructions. You could have a written one, or you could have a document. And in the document, what this allows you to do is the customer or your employee would have to go all the way down here, and there will be a button saying, I've read the article or I read the instructions, and then they can close it. Whether they do it or not, that's another story, but at least you can say that I did make that attempt and I did make it where I said I did read it and I closed it. Once again, I go back into my lag. So now that I have finished all my tasks, let's say that I might need some additional action items in here. So I can either come in here and manually create a new item, or we have a menu up here, and if I make that selection, we have different templates. For example, maybe this month we need to do a fire drill. So if I made that selection and executed that, that would add an additional item here in the action item, or it would make an additional line in the measurements or in the instructions. And then from that point, you go into the event logs. And the event log allows you to look at observations that you might see throughout the shift. For example, if I go into the environmental piece of it, environment, very similar to the incident management, I can see an overview, I can see documents or pictures. I can even see the functional location if I needed to, based on what is going on. And I could create an action item separate from the action item that you saw based on this tank not functioning properly. And then once again, I go back out into the event log. And the last part too is the downtime. So once again, I can go into a particular piece that is not working, functioning right, or a C1 classification plan. I'm kind of reading this here, but I can see that something has been down for a certain amount of time. Once that's fixed, and whoever that's assigned to clicks on marks as fixed, not only does it tell you the duration, how long it took, but you can do reporting off of that as well. And then once you, once again, I'm going to show you another aspect of this. For example, ongoing activities. This is not in the shift management starter pack, but you could easily have permits and isolation information in here as well. And then once you are satisfied and you're finishing up your shift leg here, then you come over here into the shift handover. And what this does, it goes through the entire process here. Vision 1. It's telling me that I have something open currently right now. So what I will do is I'll go to an existing one here. So once I clicked on, let's say we look at a previous one because we know that's closed. But as I indicated, it will not allow you to go over unless everything is closed. So let's just say that I am looking at this morning shift. I'm done. I hit the handover evaluation. So now, based on my handover evaluation, it's asked me comments based on the shift. And then I have to send out information to the next shift manager. So in other words, once I make that selection, there is an automatic action that happens, and it goes to that shift manager. And he has to notify that he was good in regards to the handover, plus the previous or the next shift manager can look at that document. And when he opens it up, what he sees is all of those records, whether it's incident management, contractor management, the audit, all that information is in this document. And he can review that document. He can see the measurement points. He can see what has occurred. He can see any actions that happened, any instructions that happened, and other information that you might want to put direct to the guy or to the next shift management piece. And from that point, then you continue on and you go back into your shift management, and you can continue doing, looking at other reports, other shifts, or other information that you might need. Adam, that's pretty much it, what I was going to show today.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, so now we can go into the Q&A and see if there are any questions that have come up throughout the demonstration.
I have one that just came through, another one that came through the chat. What type of integrations do you have with the software?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to take that, Adam?
Yeah, Michael, you can go ahead and take that one.
So we have any application, any database, for example, the applications, anything that has an open API or JSON, we can connect to. We also can connect to several ERP systems, such as SAP, Oracle, other databases that you guys might need. We also, I think a question came up earlier too about SCADA. We can also connect to the SCADA information and report off that inside TenForce. Did that answer the question, hopefully?
I hope so.
Okay.
I think we have someone typing one in right now in the chat. Yes. Adam, do you want to take over that one?
So how is access managed? Can everyone see everything, or is it curtailed somehow? And the answer to that is everybody has their own personalized views of the system. So, and they also have their own access rights. So what a shift operator would see is only the tasks that are assigned to him or her. The shift supervisor or that team supervisor would be able to see everybody's actions and activities that are assigned to them. And then ultimately up the chain, the operations manager and then the site manager, if there are any high priority items that need to be accomplished that needs to be on the site manager's visibility, we can utilize logic for some of those critical activities, so that way they have a view on that. Ultimately, everybody has privileged and access rights, so the management can see exactly what they need to see. If you have multiple locations and we need the corporate view of the shifts going on, or if we need to do investigations, we can have that corporate purview as well. But the person on the ground is going to have their rights restricted to certain information. Or additionally, if you have contractors come on site, we can restrict information that the contractors would see in the TenForce system as well. Okay, thank you, Bridget. All right, do we have any other questions? Okay, well, I think I can, oh, we've got somebody else coming in.
There was a question I just saw too, is in regards to, for example, if I am looking at my particular shift, there was a question on the downtime. So in general, as I indicated, based on this report right here, I can modify this report by filters or by columns.
Michael, can you share your screen again?
Oh, I'm not sharing it?
Yeah, yep, I'll send it back over to you.
Yep. I'm back.
And he's back.
Yeah, so the question was about the downtime events. This is kind of in regards to my shift, in regards to what's going on in my shift. And I can once again look at this. As you remember, I showed you how you can filter off that information, or I can change the columns. But I think the question, if I read this correctly, how we can do it as a whole from an organization. So that would be a custom report that you can do. For example, I come up here, I already have one built out called downtime events. And what that allows me to do is look at, once again, different formats. I have it defaulted to a graph, but I can easily change that into a tree view and have all that information. And once again, I come in here, I can change the column names. I can filter on certain things I'm looking for. Or maybe I want to look at this as a pivot table. And from a pivot table, once again, I can come in and see who's assigned to, and then I can drag and drop the status. If you guys are familiar with a pivot table, I can also change that to a heat map, or I can change that to a bar chart, or whatever your heart desires as you're looking at that information. Hopefully that answered that question that you were asking. And I'll switch back over to you unless there's any more questions in regards to this reporting.
We've got another one in the chat that from Shweta about API interfaces. How are they managed in the Shift template? Is it through SQL-based query?
So I'm not clear on the back part of that in regards to the setup. It's usually we have native APIs that it depends on what we're going against, what application or what database. Do you have a particular thing in mind that you're asking about? And maybe I can answer it that way. If you want to talk on the mic too, or you can type it in either way.
Yes, Shweta, you can go ahead and unmute if you'd like. We have some response coming in.
Okay, I'm good.
Let's see here. So if permits are handled in another application or platform, can we interface it in the Shift template? So I would say it ultimately, if you have another system that we can connect via an open API, if we will push and pull data from other systems, if you can extract that data in a amicable way, I can say that if there's another system that you operate with your permits under, we can integrate with a SharePoint, or we can integrate with other databases and ingest that information in a structured way. So ultimately, we would have to map out certain KPIs and reporting criterias, but once we have a little bit better idea of the information that you would like to capture, then we would be able to analyze that. We'd be happy to take a look at that and have a conversation offline with you. Okay, and another question is it possible to transfer current shift personnel lists from HR system? So we would need to look a little bit more about that, but we do have the ability to connect with scheduling systems, and we have the ability to connect to HR systems. So if we have particular information about an employee or a contractor, we can ingest that data from external systems as well and populate that into the roster. Does that answer your question, Persia? Okay, thank you. Okay, and thank you, Shweta.
And guys, I know it went through the shift management fairly fast, but to me, if there's things that interest you, Adam and I would love to have further discussions and go into more details. So definitely.
Yes, we would be happy to sit down and deep dive on this and any other modules that TenForce has to offer. If there's any other functions that somebody would like to kind of see while we have Michael with the shift log open, feel free to reach out. If not, we'll go ahead and take a couple minutes and close out the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'd like to thank everybody else for coming. You'll receive a recording of the webinar after we have a little bit of time to process it, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody else online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Persia. Have a great day. All right, Winter, I think we can stop recording.